Hello, and welcome back to the final session at the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest book club. Today we'll be covering pages 250 through 281 in my version of the book by Ken Kesey. So we just learned that McMurphy and Chief are undergoing the EST, and they Chief, fights it and comes out of it. So we can see on page 249 and 250, everyone wants to know, what's happened with McMurphy and what happened with Chief, and they're all asking Chief questions, and he's answering them back. He's talking and he's listening, and no one really seems to care that all of a sudden, a couple, I think it's decades later, Chief is talking to people, and I think people are so engulfed in gossip, and they really want to know for some strange reason. People really do love gossip, or not even just gossip, but they want to find out what's happened to their friend, that they're willing to just forego a lot of things to hear it and disregard a lot of oddities. And they want to know, like, did he fight people undisturbed, or what's he doing up there? So that's kind of funny. On page 252, they have the meeting with Mac is back, and the nurse and the doctor, and the nurse wants to consider more, let's see, what does she call it? More drastic measures for the sake of the patient, for McMurphy. She wants to know if they should do more, and Mac just can't help himself. I think getting laughs is intoxicating, and it is when people can sit there and they're not laughing at you, they're laughing with you, and you're soaking up that spotlight. It can be very, very intoxicating, and I think he's just getting wrapped up in that with he's foregoing his self-preservation just to get the nurse's goat. I had a very dear family friend of mine. He took me aside one time and he said, you do not always have to be funny. There are times when you need to just be, honest and straightforward person, and you don't need to be funny all the time. And this is a guy that is very funny, and people love him, and he likes to make jokes all the time. But yeah, it was kind of, I guess, sobering for me to hear that from him. And I have noticed when he is very straightforward and honest, and not trying to be funny all the time. And there is a time and a place for that. And I think, well, it's not just, I guess the laughter is intoxicating, and McMurphy is drinking that up, but he also wants to prove something against the big nurse, of course, as well. So then they get the night aide to help them out, to get Sandy and Candy into the ward at night, and to help out Billy, but also to bring alcohol, to have a little fun, to enjoy the time with the guys. Mr. Turkle, the night aide, Mr. Turkle. And they're about to be in trouble with the night manager asking Mr. Turkle, why are all these lights on? Because they're trying to get Candy and Sandy in there. And on page 259, Hardiman comes out, which is very out of character for him. He comes out and he talks to the night manager, and he plays it very well. Turkle was struggling; he was drowning out there, and Hardy not only threw him a life preserver, but he basically brought the ship home. He was able to get the night manager to go away and not even think twice about why the lights were on, and to question that anything out of the ordinary was going on the ward, and she's likely not to return that night because of Harding acting brave and to go against the machine. He's not acting scared anymore, and he has very good lexicon and diction, and he can speak very well, and he just struggles sometimes, but he he played that one very well with the night manager. Now, on page 263, Harding's trying to convince McMurphy to leave, and I'm sure I don't know why McMurphy, I think, entertains the thought, but I also think he has already accepted his fate that he may be staying. I know he says, all right, I'm gonna wake up in an hour with Turkle and Sandy and Candy, and we'll get out of here. He just needs to get some shut-eye. But I feel like Max, he knows the nurse will not stop until she has won. And I think McMurphy thinks the only way that he can win, he's getting so caught up in winning this battle with the nurse, and that the only way he can win is if he stays and, I guess, eventually maybe dies here. But I think McMurphy also wants the other acutes to join him in leaving. You know, they're not committed. Why are they staying? He's shown them that on the outside it can be fun and life's worth living, and they should try to join that with him. And Harding explains that Harding wants to go out, with all the red tape to prove to the nurse that, he's doing it on his terms. He's not doing it out of fear, and he didn't try to escape, but he's doing it on his own, and he doesn't need to stay there anymore, because I think the nurse wants everyone to just stay there forever, so that way she can maintain her control. And, Harding thinks that the others may not be ready, which I totally agree. Billy definitely is still very, very attached to his mother and the nurse and pleasing them. And while he's, losing his virginity tonight, or I guess that night, he's definitely still very much, a 12-year-old mindset in a 30-something-year-old body. He's not ready to enter, but he's getting further there, not just because of, being with Candy that night, but in his development of his personality, his disposition, his inner self is catching up and maturing to the age that he is in real life. His body's age, not just his emotional age. And, Harding and Seffel may not be ready, not Harding, but Fredrickson and Seffel and Scanlon, they may not necessarily be ready. And, with the epilepsy, I don't think they're handling it properly, but they are emotionally getting there. And I think, we'll find out soon enough that they may be ready to leave the ward. So I have to agree with Harding. Not all of them are exactly ready to leave, but Mac is definitely progressing them to become capable citizens outside of the hospital. We'll go to page 267. The big nurse would have found out some way what had gone on, and maybe just by the look on Billy's face, and she'd have done the same as she did whether McMurphy was still around or not, and Billy would have done what he did, and McMurphy would have heard about it and come back. I think he is exactly right about what Billy does to himself, in a few pages. But to talk about, like, page 272, a chain's only as strongest as its weakest link, and obviously Billy here is the weakest link. Once the nurse knows that if he just mentions Billy's mom, Billy is gonna fall apart, because that is his whole world. That is who he is here for and trying to please, and that is what he lives for. And the nurse is, of course, very smart, very sly, very cunning, and she knows that this whole little ordeal that the acutes have put on our ward are all going to fall apart, because she's got the weakest link, and all she has to do is mention his mother. And I think, on page 274, we find out that Billy has killed himself, and I think Chief is right. Billy would have done that anyway. He is too scared or shameful about something, or he's too scared and shameful for his mother. And he would never want to hurt her, disobey her, and Harding, as we talked about before, said Billy's not ready to leave, and he definitely wasn't ready to leave the hospital because he has to be ready to leave his mother, and he wasn't ready to do that. And so I think while he was maturing emotionally, I think it was bound to happen. And I don't blame the acutes, for this happening. Billy has, right, the emotional intelligence of maybe like a 12-year-old or something. And when he got put in a corner by the nurse, and she was gonna tell his mom, and he was freaking out, and he just blamed it all on his friends. He was like, they made me do it. I didn't, they pressured me into doing it. And there was a little bit of that, but Billy also wanted, to have the night with Candy and to have fun and to drink and do all that stuff. He went along with it. He also could have said no, but in reality, Billy really wanted this, and he just couldn't live up to his actions, and he couldn't take care of those in a mature way. So he was always going to blame them, especially if McMurphy left. That would have been the easiest thing to blame. It was Mac's fault, and Mac's not there, so he doesn't have to deal with the repercussions of the person not being there. And so even if Mac wasn't there, he would have definitely blamed them and probably took his own life. Page 275. Actually, this library book was annotated on this page. They seem to have found that this page being very important as it is. Mac rips off the big nurse's clothes and puts his hands around her neck and in, I guess, an attempt to kill her. And I'll read this portion. This is after he has wrapped his hands around her neck, and the aides aren't going to help, so the doctors and nurses are trying to get him off. He gave a cry at the last, falling backward, his face appearing to us for a second upside down before he was smothered on the floor by a pile of white uniforms. He let himself cry out. A sound of cornered animal fear and hate and surrender and defiance, that if you ever trailed coon or cougar or lynx, is like the last sound the treed and shot and falling animal makes as the dog gets him, when he finally doesn't care anymore about anything but himself and his dying. And with that, it's true. I think Mac reaches a breaking point, and he thinks the only way he can free this ward is by getting rid of this one person who has their grasp and who's manipulative and just not a healthy person for these patients to be around. She knew that she was going to make Billy, I don't know if she knew that he might kill himself, but she definitely knew that he was going to just break apart. And she did it anyway, just for the satisfaction of getting back at Mac and getting back at the other patients and maintaining her control. And then, once they finally get him off of her, he lets out that cry. And, I think he realizes that he has a hint of that self-preservation, that he is going to die. And it's kind of sad, and it is scary. And Mac he just couldn't help himself. But I don't blame him, honestly. They were put in a tough position, and it's in his personality, and he just broke on a person that really didn't have their best, any of the patient's best intentions in mind, except for her own intentions. And then as we learn, Sefeld and Fredrickson, they signed out together. Harding went out the way he wanted to. Several other people, left. And, of course, Mac got the lobotomy. And, like Chief says, he didn't want the nurse to maintain. He didn't want her to have Mac on display for the rest of his life and for the rest of, the nurse's reign on the ward, for people to see that that if you go against her, this is what happens to you, because then pretty much no one would, right? And so Chief kills Mac, and is it Scanlon? I believe Scanlon is there, and he just says, "Is it done?" They both understood that that was the only way, and that Mac doesn't. Post-lobotomy is no way to live, and Mac wouldn't want to live that way. So it was good, and it was right, and it was just for what Chief did, even though killing is, not good. But Mac was already dead. He just happened to keep breathing. And so Chief makes his own escape. He's now talking and listening to others. Well, he was listening before, but now he is talking and interacting with others. And he wants to go back to the Columbia, go back to his roots. And he's blossomed from a lonely and isolated person into a social creature that, isn't ashamed of his past, and that wants to become a better person moving forward. So McMurphy was able to change this ward. I guess he hasn't really changed the ward. He has changed the people that were around him, I'd say, for the better. They're going to go assimilate back into the world and be better people. The one bad thing is that there's only 2 people now that remain that were around to see McMurphy. So once they get fresh new patients in, I think the nurse is going to go right back into what she was doing before. There's no way that woman is going to change, and I don't think Mac has changed that woman. And so she's going to, moving forward, reclaim her throne and maintain the same thing that she was doing on the ward before McMurphy got there, having the patients live in fear of her decisions and to always please her and to have order. But she can't be there forever. Eventually it will change, and hopefully, like, the disturbed nurse will take over. But for what McMurphy did for those people on the ward, he changed their life, probably, hopefully, for the better, and they can assimilate back into society. Well, I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this book club of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey. I haven't chosen my next book yet. You can leave comments for which book it should be. Remember, it's got to be from the public library, so that way anyone can join. And yeah, thank you for listening. Let me know your thoughts, discussions. Have a good day.